Moi Stadium right here in This is County 14. Good evening to you and welcome to TV47 News Tonight. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyeringita. On the sign language interpretation is Rhoda Nyamai. It is just the preparations for the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations to prepare for the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations, which will be happening tomorrow. And the gates will be opened right about 4 a.m. and the guests will be seated by 7 a.m. and we'll be bringing all that to you live. But first, to topics. Tonight, more rejections as Parliament finalizes receiving public views on the contentious finance bill.
It's not really my decision as a chair. I lead a committee, so it's going to be the decision of the committee.
The opposition pledges a protest over the same.
Tunaangalia tu, tumepatia nafasi bado. Titafika wakati tutapiga firimbi.
Also tonight, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki says law will not spare those sponsoring the resurgence of the outlawed Mungiki sect.
Any person who thinks that we can go back to the years when terror groups hiding behind culture, that person is dead wrong.
And in our special report, we will tell you of the caves of Nthengenjeru, which are used as hideouts for Mau Mau fighters. Right, once more, welcome to the bulletin. This is TV47 News Tonight. And first up, we do start with matters, the finance bill debate and the furor on the finance bill. And a section of Nairobians have presented their views to on the public participation drive in the highly contested finance bill. Some of the proposals with the highest petition include a 3% housing levy, 16% VAT on petroleum products, and 35% on employees earning 500,000 Kenyan shillings and above. Elizabeth Atieno begins us off tonight.
Wednesday, the 31st of June, has been the final day of the 9-day public participation exercise on the Finance Bill of 2023 that commenced on the 21st of May. Members of the public in Nairobi appeared before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, where a total of 55 Kenyans tabled their submissions.
Today, out of the 55 stakeholders, on that particular clause, because I think it has been very controversial, on the housing levy, we've had 24 stakeholders saying that they actually do support the housing levy. We have 18 saying they totally oppose it, and we have, so that is 18, and we had 3 people, 3 stakeholders saying let us make it voluntary.
According to the committee, of the 55 submissions, a huge chunk are in support to the housing levy.
Issue ya nyumba, sisi wote nafikiri kila mtu analala kwa nyumba, hata kama ni mbaya. Hatuna haraka na nyumba. Hiyo ni maoni yangu.
Mtu ameshindwa na kulipa nyumba, ameshindwa na chakula, sasa amehama, ameenda nyumbani. Tena mwafikia yeye kule nyumbani, muongeze kodi ya chakula, sijui mwataka ahame tena kutoka nyumbani aende wapi.
Ndio at least tukifanya hii job tutamanage kulipa hiyo nyumba, pia sisi tukae maisha poa. Mimi ni mgeto, so siwezi chukia kukaa life poa, at least ati nafuria nguo kwa nyumba, pupu kwa house. So mimi naona iko tu sawa.
We have our old estates which can be demolished, and we put up those high-rise apartments, quite big lands, places like Makongeni, Jericho, Kaloleni. They are very big spaces where you can do the housing stuff.
The 15% tax to digital content creators is also a proposal that does not sit well with some Kenyans, especially the youth, who rely on the digital space as a source of their livelihoods.
We should be focusing on empowering more content creators instead of trying to stop them in their tracks by having to force them to pay an extra cost just to stay afloat.
In addition, the bill proposes for an increased excise duty rates for mobile transfer services from the current 12 to 15%, which creates a likelihood of increased mobile money charges by teleco operators from 7.5% to 20%.
Until 2009, the bans used to be adjusted every year in the budget. And we used to look forward to see how many 100 shillings we would save every month when they were adjusted. But this has not happened, and the current top rate of 30% kicks in at only 32,000 shillings monthly.
Some Kenyans say that they are forced to dig deep into their pockets to cater for the increased transport fee, which has been occasioned by the increase in VAT on petroleum products from the current 8% to 16%.
Vijana wale wanakuja kwa garage, wanaamuka kila asubuhi, lazima mtafutie transport ya kwenda mahali anakaa. Na shida kilio ni chakula. Kwa sababu ya kuongezwa mafuta.
Sasa mwataka kuongeza mafuta, yule ameingia na 70, ashuke kwa gari atembee mguu, na mwenye gari aweke gari parking. Ni Kenya gani tuko?
During the public participation, some argued that the 35% taxation on Kenyans whose gross monthly income sits above 500,000 Kenya shillings or 6 million Kenya shillings annually will lead to an unfair comparison of the employed and unemployed citizens.
How I wish you could consider this proposal and make it compulsory to any employer to issue the P9 form in time, so that it helps these employees to file their returns, not to pay the fines.
And each of these proposals have a financial implication of how much we are supposed to raise in revenue. So after this, there's going to be a lot of consultations between ourselves as a committee and National Treasury and KRA to find this is what Kenyans are saying. They are telling you if you change it here, maybe perhaps you could collect more. We have even had such proposals. And then after that, we're going to retreat to do a report. And then after do a report, we're going to table it. Then we do the second reading. We do committee of the whole house. And we do the third reading and then send it to the president for assent.
All eyes are now on the National Assembly, which is expected to discuss the bill on the 8th of June after a scheduled meeting between the Finance and Planning Committee, the Kenya Revenue Authority, and the National Treasury on some of the highly contested proposals in the bill. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth Atieno. Now to matters security and Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has put a stern warning on persons using religious extremism practices to advance on their unlawful activities. And as Moige William reports, the government has said that it has put on notice and put on radar persons and religious leaders who use this particular religious extremism practices.
The man in charge of Kenya's security outlined what he considered the worst threats facing Kenya's security matrix. Top among them, the resurgence of the outlawed Mungiki sect that terrorized Kenyans between 2010 and 2017.
The Principal Administrative Secretary.
In his 6-month accountability report, Kindiki says the regrouping has begun in parts of central Kenya.
We saw them chanting the other day outside the DCI when we arrested a suspect. And you can see the courage, the demeanor, the impunity of these criminals.
Kindiki had pains to show a direct link between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the resurgence of the sect, especially after Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on Monday claimed that there could be a link.
Any person who thinks that we can go back to the years when terror groups hiding behind culture raped our women and our children, as well as extorted money from business people, that person is dead wrong.
Kindiki also used the platform to call out the perpetrators of the raid on the Northlands farm that is linked to the former First family.
We have undertaken investigations and we will be arraigning some suspects very soon. It has taken a bit of time because of the politicization.
At the same time, the Interior Cabinet Secretary called out Kenyans who stormed police stations in Wajir and Isebania and the youth who burned down tea-plucking machines in Kericho.
Many countries in Africa have disintegrated into violence. And you know it starts like that. You are aggrieved somewhere, you attack a police station, you take the arms, you free people who are in custody, you have a problem with an officer, you go and hurt them or kill them. We cannot go that route.
Kindiki also raised fears of possible exhumation of more bodies, stating that security agencies who have set camp in Shakahola have discovered more graves, with the exhumation exercise set to resume Monday. 242 bodies have as of Wednesday been recovered from the expansive Chakama ranch. Kindiki warning the government has put on its radar more religious leaders allegedly for extremist teachings. Mwege William, TV 47.
Thank you for that, Mwege William. Let's talk politics now. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has threatened mass action if President William Ruto does not heed to the Azimio demands. As our senior political reporter Apollo Kamau reports, on a day the Azimio bipartisan team has suspended the talks indefinitely.
The indefinite suspension of bipartisan talks on Wednesday signaled a possible return of Azimio street protests after opposition leader Raila Odinga issued a 5-day ultimatum to President William Ruto to honor the opposition's demands or face the consequences.
Usiku wakaendelea kutafuta watu wetu pale, wanataka kuzungumza. Tunawaangalia tu, tumepatia nafasi bado. Titafika wakati tutapiga firimbi, lakini bado kidogo. Tumewapatia wiki hii, kesho ni Madaraka Day, kesho kuta ni Alhamisi, na Ijumaa, alafu mpaka weekend. Sawa? Sasa tutapiga parapanda. Msiwe na wasiwasi.
Azimio co-chair in the talks, Otiende Amolo, invoked the bipartisan talks framework of agreement that allows either party in the talks to seek for dissolution if the talks fail. Otiende, in his letter to Kenya Kwanza's co-chair George Murugara, says, and I quote, "In the circumstances, it is our considered opinion that the appropriate action is to adjourn the talks in die, in accordance with Clause 36 of the Framework of Agreement, which we hereby invoke." This is after Murugara refused to sign 2 letters, one to the IEBC Chief Executive Officer Marjan Hussein Marjan, seeking the preservation of servers, and a second letter to Dr. Nelson Makanda, the chair of the selection panel for chairperson and IEBC commissioners, calling for the suspension of the recruitment process.
Tukapeleka watu wetu wazungumzi na hao jamaa. Kwenda kule wanaleta ujanja. Okora hapa na pale, hapa na pale. Kasema haya, Kiswahili sisi tunajua. Kiswahili tunajua. Kama mnataka tuzungumuze, tuko tayari. Kama tukataka tucheze, tuko tayari. Na mkitaka vita, tuko tayari.
Azimio has further faulted Murugara for failing to respond to Azimio's Tuesday's PG resolutions. With Kenya Kwanza maintaining a studious silence on Azimio, Odinga is under pressure to call for mass protests as early as Thursday during Madaraka Day, a push he rejected, telling his supporters to be patient.
Havana. Kesho ni Madaraka Day.
Odinga also sustained his offensive against the Finance Bill 2023, instructing his MPs to oppose while criticizing Kenya Kwanza's administration for ignoring Kenyans' plight by raising taxes instead of reintroducing subsidies.
Hiyo sheria namna hiyo, mimi niambia Bwana Ruto, mimi nimeendesha serikali. Nilikuwa waziri mkuu na Kibaki. tunajua kuendesha uchumi. Tuliingia kwa serikali kama uchumi ilikuwa imeathirika zaidi kuliko hapa.
It's either our way or the highway in the latest Azimio demands, begging the question, who will blink first? Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Thank you for that, Apollo. Let's talk money matters now. And the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, has predicted a strong performance of the country's performance in the first quarter of the country's economy, basically in the financial year 2023-2024. Flora Lemuki with the details.
The government has missed its revenue collection target as of the end of April 2023. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u revealed while appearing before the Budget and Appropriations Committee. The total revenue collected by the end of April, including appropriations in aid, amounted to 1.894 trillion shillings against a target of 2.01 trillion shillings, resulting in a shortfall of 124.8 billion shillings.
A broad-based private sector growth, including continued strong performance of the services sector and the recoveries in agriculture, especially from the very strong and well covered rainfall pattern.
It has become more critical to mobilize all the available resources to support our development agenda. Reliance on development partners can only be offset through enhanced revenue effort and expenditure rationalization.
Additionally, the government is projecting to spend 475 billion shillings to service debt in the next financial year. This will be an increment from 242.1 billion shillings used for the same in the 2022-2023 financial year.
Those banks, those reading managers with banks holding our Eurobond, we can actually target them to be the read managers. Because if you went out and looked for just any transactions advisor, then you're going to have totally different outcome.
The government says the policies to be implemented in the next financial year will aim to provide an enabling environment critical for accelerating economic recovery and improving livelihoods. Flora Limuki, TV47.
Right now, let me bring you right here in County 014, and the gates right here in Moi Stadium, Embu, will be opened at exactly 4 a.m. for the guests to be seated by 7 a.m. for the preparations of the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations, which will be presided by the Commander-in-Chief, President William Ruto. Take a look. Last-minute preparations for the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations were underway Wednesday at the Moi Stadium, which is in the heart of Embu County.
Was refurbished and to give assurance that we are ready to host you.
The renovation of the stadium, which took 15 weeks under the supervision of the military, is expected to benefit the county government. According to the sports CS, Ababu Namwamba, the renovation of the stadium cost the government 476 million Kenyan shillings. The feat-themed universal health coverage will also see the launch of the second tier of the Hustler Fund by President William Ruto. This even as Kenyans have weighed in on the expectations on his inaugural Madaraka Day speech as head of state. Right now that you already know the celebrations, the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations will be right here in County 014, that is in Embu County. But what else do you really know about Embu County? Well, now I'll be telling you more about that. Moge William will be bringing you more stories right here from Embu County, and the first installment is Vendenga Njiru Caves. You want to know more about that? Take a look.
We set out on a 130-kilometer journey to Embu County. About 2.5 hours later, we are greeted by this stunning waterfall neatly tucked in this beautiful green valley surrounded by hills and lush vegetation is what meets us in our quest to find the untold stories of the county's contribution to Kenya attaining self-rule 6 decades ago. If this waterfall could speak, it could use its thunderous yet soothing sound to give a detailed account of 60 years ago, of before, during, and even after the struggle for independence. Inasmuch as this site has become a tourist attraction and a picnic site, Little known is the rich history behind the falls. Coincidentally, while filming in the area filled with dense vegetation, we bumped into an old woman fetching firewood. For a minute, she was glued directly gazing into the camera. Engaging her, she revealed she was part of the Mau Mau struggle. Ruth Ndia is among the few surviving Mau Mau fighters from the area. She shared her experience during the struggle for independence in her native language, Kiembu. Ndia, a mother of 8 sons, vividly recalls of the contribution she made during the colonial time. Her task was to take food to fighters who had gone into the forest.
We were taken from the villages and forced to take an oath not to admit that we are Mau Mau or seen a Mau Mau. Our main duty and responsibility was to take food into the forest.
Ndia goes on to narrate the horrific ordeal of how they cheated death each day since the colonial rulers found any reason to ensure that they were tortured or killed the Mau Mau who were against the imperial rule of the British government. At one point, recalling how she escaped death by a whisker when the then colonial home guards apprehended her.
The bullet had already killed 2 ladies in front of me, but it scratched my chin and left a deep wound. We encountered the whites while heading back to the forest to take food. I had a premonition about the ambush.
A visible bullet wound which left a scar on her chin is still visible. Ndia boasts of her contribution for the country to attain its independence, but she could hardly restrain herself when we were about to end the interview, lamenting of the little appreciation and support they have received from the Kenyan government.
We are yet to receive even a dime, but even with the children we now have, things could have been bad for them.
Not so far from where Ndia was fetching firewood are some of the caves that the former Mau Mau veterans were using as a strategic hideout during their guerrilla war with the colonial government. Living directly on top of one of the caves is Mary Modoni and her family, who is well versed with the historical significance of the then temporary habitats of the ones who were against the colonial government. A walk to access the strategically hidden place was not an easy one, but Modoni walked us through the historical place. According to Modoni, one could hardly tell if there were caves which could harbor any human, but in a well-structured coded message, the fighters who had relocated into the vast forest at the slopes of the mountain managed to get food and all other essential supplies to their hideouts.
Unaona kichaka kama hii. Sasa unakuja unaingilia hapa. Huwezi vieka. Unakuja unatafuta mwanya, unaingilia hapo ndani. Ukiingilia hapo ndani, kitu watu hawataona, unaingia unaenda huko. Hata mwingine akipita hapo hawezi njua.
Getting to the caves where a thick blanket of darkness covers it as the tunnel stretches deep into the earth with the air inside damp and cold, and it's occupied by birds.
Sasa wakikaa hapa na wapike na wakure na wapange mambo sao. Wakiua msungu, si wanachukua ile bunduki yao. Ndio wanakuja sasa wanaiwekelea chini ndio wastande hiyo kitu venye inafanya kazi. Si unaona? Sasa wangeweza kustande wakiwa kwenye kichaka, ndio watakutwa. Hata wakiviatua huku, hiyo sauti iwezi toka nje. Huko nje nani hawezi sikia hiyo sauti.
The caves, whose walls are occupied by birds, one will wonder how the nation's freedom fighter made through each night in such places and managed to fight the white rulers. Modoni acknowledges the sacrifices made by the 10 natives to lead resistance against the colonial rule, but with very little to smile about for Ndia.
Sinaona kweli walikuwa na, hata kama hawakuwa na elimu, walikuwa na maono ya wanjukuu na vitukuu wao, ndio wakae mzuri. Juu sasa kama hawakujitolea kulala kwa kichaka, kulala kwa mvua, hatungekuwa hapa. Juu wao wenyewe hawakufaidika. Juu walikufa na njaa, magonjwa na hawakuwa na elimu. Na kama hata hawakuwa na elimu, walikuwa na ile knowledge ya kusaliwa nayo kubwa sana.
Such places were the ideal hideouts for our forefathers, a decision and sacrifice they made that we are enjoying 6 decades later. Independence. Mwige William for TV47 from Vendenga Falls, Runyenjes in Embu County.
Right, thank you for that, Mwige William. And definitely we'll be bringing you such and more stories right here in County 014, that is Embu County. Now, from Embu County, let's cross over all the way to Kilifi County, where the second phase of the autopsy of 123 bodies has been completed today. And the government chief pathologist Johansen Odor said by Wednesday they had completed 243 autopsies. Addressing journalists during the end of the second phase at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital mortuary, he said out of the 16 bodies that were remaining, 6 were male while 9 were female, but they could not ascertain the gender of one body due to the level of decomposition. This as the next phase of exhumation is set to begin on Tuesday.
One of the bodies we were unable to determine the gender because of the level of decomposition. Adults were 11 and the children were 4. One of them also we were unable to determine the age because of the state of the body. When you look at the state of the bodies which we did autopsies on, one of the person we did autopsy on was very fresh and having died in hospital after staying in hospital for about a week. And what we were told is he had been admitted with severe dehydration and malnutrition. While in hospital, he refused to treatment totally. He refused even to take feed until he passed on. And we found out that the cause of death was kidney failure, which had been caused by dehydration. So that was the fresh one. But 13 of them were severely decomposed, while 2 were moderately decomposed. As for the cause of death, of course, I've talked about that one who died in hospital because of acute kidney failure, which was caused by dehydration. But 10 of them we found that had died because of starvation. There were features of starvation, while 5 of them we were unable to state the cause of death because of the level of decomposition. So far we've done a total of 243 bodies from the time we started autopsies, which is on 1st of this month up to today. We've done a total of 243 bodies. And from what we saw, most of them were males and most of them are also adults. Next week we are going to embark on the process of exhumation, which we intend to start on Tuesday. And that is all.
All right, my chronometer says about 28 minutes past the top of the hour. Remember, we're coming to you live from the Moi Stadium right here in Embu town. It is quite a chilly evening, quite a hilly place and an interesting place to be actually. And remember, you can always be right here for the 60th Madaraka Day celebrations. And remember, right here at TV47 and Radio 47, we'll be bringing you Blue by Blue updates. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back for more details.
For the biggest of guests, from politicians to entertainers to content creators to whichever kind of a person you want to think that you'd want to see on the show, this is the place to be. Dr. Vendenga tonight.
Each and every Wednesday. My name is DJ Lizney, not your ordinary DJ.
And of course, they call me the eagle himself. Your host, Dr. Vendenga, is my name. Of course, every Wednesday at 7:30. See you there and don't touch.
Make sure to join us.
Tell your landlord as well. Jua unalipia parent.
Sikose.
Join us at From Politics, Health, Cooking, Relationships, and Entertainment. Join Linda Alela every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. only on Morning Cafe.
Your health is not just about going to the hospital. Your health is about prevention, it's about what you eat, it's about where you live. For this reason, the Body Garage Show exists.
The part of the brain that deals with communication.
Called primary hypertension, which means that we don't find a reason for that.
Join me, Dr. Chepsi, every Thursday, 8 p.m.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Beyond the Limit. We have not even scratched the surface when it comes to knowledge about disability. Beyond the Limit with me, Mohammed, every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
You know what pops in my house more than the rainbow? Walls. You know what I love between me and him? Space. Don't worry, dishes. No one is doing me either. Hey, not much, just hanging around. Pull yourself together. Enough on the jokes. Let's talk about real estate. Catch the Realtor every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Want to learn?
For the first step, we are going to draw out the balloons. As you can see, we have balloons on our birthday cards.
Have fun. Then catch Kids on the Block every Saturday at 9 a.m.
For the biggest of guests, from politicians to entertainers to content creators to whichever kind of a person you want to think that you'd want to see on the show, this is the place to be. Dr. Vendenga tonight.
Each and every Wednesday. My name is DJ Lizney, not your ordinary DJ.
And of course, they call me the Eagle himself. Your host, Dr. Vendenga, is my name. Of course, every Wednesday at 7:30. See you there and don't touch.
Make sure to join us.
Tell your landlord as well. Jua unalipia wa parent.
Sikose.
And artisan programs. You know what pops in my house more than the rainbow? Walls. You know what I love between me and him? Space. Don't worry, dishes. No one is doing me either. Hey, not much, just hanging around. Pull yourself together. Enough on the jokes. Let's talk about real estate. Catch the Realtor every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Right, welcome in Embu County. Now, are you personally seeking health services in a rural area using a private health facility? Now, here's some interesting news for you. You might be forced to dig deeper into your pockets. This is after a directive given by the Rural Hospitals Association to have the patients pay using cash and not insurance. Take a look.
Wilfred Obaga is a patient at Hema Hospital in Kisii County. He has been here for a while now. He tells us he depended solely on NHIF to fund his stay in this private facility before things took an ugly turn.
Wagonjwa hapa Hema Hospital nimekaa muda mrefu sana, kama vile tulikuwa tunakuja kitambo tunalipiwa NHIF na tulipia pesa. Sasa hatujui ni nini imetokea saa hii. Tumepona tuko hospitali, NHIF tunangojea message. Hii pesa tunalipa kila mwezi. inaenda wapi?
He says one of the reasons he chose a private facility is due to the fact that he expected quality care as opposed to a public facility.
Sisi wala hatuna namna, tumefanya kazi, tumelitaya, tuko nyumbani na tunaendelea kulipa NHIF. Na sasa ati hatuwezi tibiwa kwa private. Kwani private ikipotea, tutatoa pesa wapi tuende kutibiwa? Serikali, Ruto, tusaidie tafadhali.
According to the director of Hema Hospital in Kisii County, Harun Abuga, private health institutions could not be wished away since public hospitals could be unable to cope with an upsurge of patients from the health facilities.
For private institutions like ours, these companies, these payers, they affect our operations in a great extent because we treat their patients, they pay us later. But we are facing a serious challenge when it comes to payment, and this has grounded most of our operations. And if you don't get the monies that you have spent for patients, even getting quality service, offering quality service to this patient becomes a challenge because essentially there is no man to run the hospital.
He adds that the lack of funding could lead to closure of hospitals, hence job losses.
We, as the private sector, we are the major players in the economy. If you close down private entities by not maybe supporting them financially, you are going to cause loss of jobs. I will close my hospital because I am not paid. So 100 staff will go jobless. So I think the government has to take this seriously so that our mothers can be safe, our children can be safe.
In a letter dated 29th May 2023, Rufa says that as a result of failure by the NHIF board to remit capitation payments for the months of April to June 2023, the health facilities under Rufa have no choice but to issue immediate notice to beneficiaries of NHIF capitated schemes to make cash payments for services rendered. The letter further says that the non-payment is a breach of agreement and that despite receiving letters and assurance from the board since April 2023 indicating that the payment will be made, no payment has been made since. Joy Chemutai, TV 47.
Right, and still on matters health, now over 2,000 farmers have shifted to safer crops. This is a move that Kenya is seeking to have shift from tobacco farming to alternative farming. However, according to Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Akumicha, 36,000 farmers are yet to do so. Take a look.
Kenya joined the rest of the world in commemorating the World No Tobacco Day today. Speaking in Migori County, Health CS Susan Nakhumicha said over 20,000 tobacco farmers in Migori County and 36,000 across the country are yet to switch to safer crops despite the World Health Organization's rigorous campaign.
Tobacco products contribute to the carbon footprint through emissions with resultant of air pollution, depletion of the ozone layer, increased exposure to ultraviolet rays, and occurrences of the skin, lung cancers, and respiratory diseases, among others.
According to the CS, the country's prevalence rate of tobacco use among adults stands at 11.6%, whilst the youth prevalence rate is at 9.9%. This, she says, translates to over 6,000 tobacco-related deaths annually.
Being the leading cause of 8 out of 10 top causes of death globally, devastating consequences to our health and society at large. The time has come for us to recognize the urgency of addressing this issue and take decisive protective action for our citizens, particularly the vulnerable, the youth.
Experts say areas with the highest tobacco farming such as Migori, Bungoma, Busia, Tharaka Nithi and Meru are burdened with food insecurity, malnutrition among children as well as a surge in non-communicable diseases.
Na magonjwa mengi tu katika sehemu hiyo kwa sababu hata wale wanaofanya kazi katika mashamba ya tumbako kama ni akina mama wakifanya kazi humo na ni wajawazito wana afya, watoto wanakuwa wagonjwa, unaona mtoto anatapika ni kana kwamba ana malaria kumbe hana, wanauma na kichwa na kadhalika. utakuta ya kwamba maeneo hayo pia kemikali zinazotumika zile tunataja kama agrochemicals huwa ni kali zaidi na zinaharibu ardhi na pia zinasombwa na maji na kuelekezwa kwa mito iliyo karibu. Sasa unakuta mwanadamu akitumia maji hayo ni shida, wanyama hawawezi kutumia maji hayo.
And even though Kenya has won up to 10 awards for fighting tobacco farming, experts warn that attempt by the government to amend Section 10 Excess Duty Act by removing the inflation adjustment in the latest finance bill will water down all the efforts implemented towards tobacco control.
As we're encouraging the shifting from tobacco growing to food growing, we are telling the government that your absence in talking about increasing excess taxes, your absence by expressly intending to repeal, to amend Section 10 of the Excise Duty Act by removing inflation adjustment is actually taking us 15 steps behind as compared to the 5 steps we are making in shifting away from tobacco farming to food farming. So the government should be more open-minded, see this problem holistically.
Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Right, and now from matters health to matters security and diplomacy, and President William Ruto has commended the cessation of hostilities in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And the president said that months facilitating the return to normalcy in the country. He noted that a civilian officer will be appointed to help shield the East African Regional Force from political and public affairs matters. The head of state was speaking on Wednesday during the 21st Extraordinary Summit of the East African Community, that is EAC Heads of State, in Bujumbura, Burundi.
Today, Mr. Chairman, we celebrate the ceasefire that has now been holding for the last 2 months, and congratulate all the actors, the Democratic Republic of Congo's military, the East African Regional Force, and all the actors that have made it possible for us to have the ceasefire that we all wanted as a summit. Also to celebrate the gradual return of civilian life in Eastern DRC. We also want to congratulate the government of DRC for facilitating the renewal of the mandate of the East Africa Regional Force for another 6 months. And the agreement we've had this morning again, Mr. Chairman, that the M23 and all the other armed groups will now proceed to cantonment, and a mechanism has been agreed this morning, a time-bound agreement, and it is appropriate and in order for us to say that as a region, the coming together of our heads of state and the deployment of our military in Eastern DRC has given us very positive.
Right, on that note, let's talk matters money after this bumper. All right, and first off, the Central Bank of Kenya has said that it has lowered its projection to 5.5%. This is after its initial projection was 5.8% in March this particular year. So the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Patrick Njoroge did not address the new forecast. Then the economy expanded by 4.8% last year, lower than the pace of expansion in 2021, weighed on by a contraction in the agriculture sector. Njoroge, who will leave the post mid next month after 8 years, said he expected the farming sector to rebound strongly due to the base effects of last year's contraction and adequate rainfall across the country. Agriculture accounts for more than a fifth of economic output in the East Africa region. Tourism, which is another key sector, is reporting good forward bookings.
Inflation was coming down, and the real, let's say, spanner in the works was sugar. And I've explained why sugar doesn't have, you cannot control sugar prices with monetary policy, right? So only the second round effect. So we need to have clarity about that. At the same time, we have food prices coming down quite sharply. So in a sense, it was better to, given all this data, the MPC decided to hold. Local dollar denominated bonds, I guess to help lift the domestic currency, I guess this means on the exchange rate side. I don't know. I think there's a lot of considerations that need to be put in place, and it isn't sort of a slam dunk. Sorry to use that expression. It's not a, a sort of a surefire thing. There are many issues that that one needs to consider, and I think the point here is that maybe the one thing to mention is when this is raised, it's generally raised in the context of, there's a lot of deposit, people are holding a lot of dollars, etc. And I don't think that actually this is fully well understood. So maybe, do you have a slide that I can? We are happy to say that this has been working, and the distribution is coming closer and closer around the interbank, and more transactions are taking place in the interbank. And so banks are less concerned about, let's say, having